Hey, sorry, I hadn't hit the button yet. Hi, thank you for joining us and welcome everybody. We'll call the meeting to order at 11:04 a.m. Are there any public comments? Does not look like there is.
Yes, nobody has signed up and no one's presented.
Thank you, Attilio. Okay, let's see. Let's move into approval of minutes. Or actually, we need to push that off until we have the others. Should we move right into project updates? So then we'll move, I'll make a move to, we're gonna change the agenda and move the action items to the back end and move project updates to the front end. And Vivian, no public comments that were submitted ahead of time? Thank you. We're gonna move to project updates and hold until perhaps Carlton and Commissioner Phillips and Commissioner Watts arrive.
Watts is outside, Phillips is crossing over the gap.
Perfect, great.
So yes.
Thank you all for being here. And thank you to the staff for all the work that you've been doing. And we will turn it over to, let's see, Ann Leslie for project update.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to give a few of these, and then Attilio is going to, and Masania are going to give some as well. If you'll switch to the next slide. So I had expected, hello, Commissioner Watts.
Hi, Commissioner Watts.
I had expected this update might come after an action item related to Arthur Avenue. So you'll hear more about the background of this project when we get to that. But the Arthur Avenue project is a public art lighting project, a partnership with the Nashville DOT, for which we also received an NEA grant to work on it. And of course, there's a much larger public art budget beyond the NEA grant. And this is enabling us to hire artist Alex Braden. He is based in St. Louis. And just last week, on the 6th, he and his lighting programmer came to Nashville. I don't know if y'all remember how very, very rainy that Wednesday night was, but we were out there, and it was actually a good time to evaluate that space there at the underpass, water drainage from the deck there on I-65 has been an issue, so we could really see it coming in. But his main priority was to test some lighting fixtures that he is considering for this project. So you see that on the first and second slide. There is one fixture that might sit up on that abutment wall and then shine along the bottom of the I-beams. And then another kind of fixture that'll have those pixels. Hello. And have those pixels and be strung between I-beams, hundreds of them, essentially underneath this bridge, and it really will change how people use and feel about this space, which has been just very, very dark for a long time. Did you want to go on, or do you want to, now that we have everybody?
Now we have everybody here, do you want to circle back to action items, or do you want to continue on with this project update and then circle back?
However you'd like to do it.
First, let me apologize.
Thank you for coming. Hey, Carlton. Okay, thank you. I want to welcome Carlton Wilkinson and Commissioner Phillips and Commissioner Watts. And so we are going to continue with item E, the project updates. And then we will go back to D, the action items, and then the approval of minutes. Just kind of go backwards.
So yeah, still here at Arthur Avenue, that last photo, the artists and his lighting programmer also did some measuring. We have really great TDOT drawings from the recent bridge repair, but they still were recognizing that there were some measurements that maybe were off a little bit, or they needed more information. So NDOT was great to help out with making it a safe space. You know, we had all the pylons, and yeah, everybody had knew what we were doing, so it was great. They actually got to interact with a lot of people who came by both at night and during the day, and a lot of people did tell them how dark it was in that space, so they were excited that a lighting project is in the works. Jesse, we didn't talk about this, but would you like to just give a little update on the Art Lending Library?
Sure. Yes, we are probably about 95% complete with installation at all 5 of the Lending Library branches. You'll see on the screen here the picture of Green Hills and Old Hickory. And the only one that we're just fixing a few items on is in Donaldson. That will be completed over the weekend and on Monday. And yeah, they are looking great. Tomorrow, and Leslie and I are going to be taking a trip around to all the branches again to give all the cases that the pictures go into when people check them out, and labels and some other information. So it's been going smoothly for the most part. We have little hiccups here and there. It's a lot of coordination with the library and arts and all the branches, and you know, the installers and the vinyl and the photo, you know, of the artwork. So it's great. But it's moving along. Is there anything else I should add?
Well, I'll just add yes to what you said. Yeah, there's certainly a lot of moving parts with this project. One of the great things that I think these photos illustrate is just how customizable this project is. Certainly when we did this at the first phase, that was at Madison and Southeast branches. They are very, very different. You know, one was in actually their meeting room space there at Southeast, you know, behind some glass. We ended up using an A-frame kind of a cart closer to the circulation desk, which had information and directed people to the back to the where most of the artwork was located. Here you see a very wide hallway that they have previously used as gallery space at Green Hills, which we utilized. And then at Old Hickory, this is actually space they had behind their circulation desk. So a much smaller space. You know, some of these older buildings, you know, don't have as much space to provide for a lending library, but we're able to adapt to whatever the branches can offer for this. And so I think it all came together very well. So appreciate Jesse and all his work in managing this project.
This might be one of the few times you get to see the art actually hanging on the wall. The program is so popular that they get checked out immediately, and most of the time you're seeing the vinyl image behind it. So yeah, just, you know, enjoy seeing the actual art on the wall.
And then for the next one, Attilio is going to share. And Ms. Anya.
Thank you, everybody. So we wanted to talk today and give you an update about the Nolensville Pike Transit Shelters reinstallation. After 2 years, we decided to reinstall the vinyls because one thing we didn't do a while ago was document and actually have photographs with the artists themselves. This time we also decided to have an interview with them, each individual. So there's 5 shelters and 8 artists because there's 2 artist teams. And so we had the opportunity last week to meet with individual team with the exclusion of Lysander. He wasn't able to, he was traveling, but we are working on getting content capture together, coming up with a short video for each individual artist. And then we'll be providing that to them, which also will be, featuring on our website and social media platforms. But a big, thank you to Metro ITS. They're the videographers and producers of this. And they able to provide that service to us. So yeah, that's where we're at right now with that. It came out very beautifully. The artists were really, really excited about it. And yeah, we're just looking on to getting these materials back to you, and we'll be able to see the full feature later on. Do you want to add anything?
No.
Okay.
Perfectly said.
Yes. Sure, certainly.
Okay, Mike.
Yeah, you'll need your mic.
Some of these things are so beautiful and they are put in such strategic locations. I was just wondering, who brings that marriage together? Who decides where artwork goes? Who decides what artists are used to do the artwork that's there? And I mean, how does that marriage work?
Can you speak to
Yes, so with this particular project, it was a collaboration between WeGo and Metro Arts. And this was done, that marriage was done prior to me arriving, so I inherited this project. First, they had a different concept, but because of warranties to the shelters, we decided to go a different route and add vinyl wrapping to them. But from my understanding, it was still a selection process that we went through. There was 5 artist teams that were selected. And then they also did community engagement. From my understanding, the focus was, there was a initiative that was called Re-Envision or Envision Nolensville. And the targeted place was down Nolensville Pike. Now we're hoping that we could work in the future with WeGo in similar projects. I'm not sure if we're going to continue doing vinyl. We're still using this as a pilot program kind of a thing to see the durability and what that's going to do in the future. But with that being said, the artists were really, really invested in the community. And the cool thing about it, you'll see on the right-hand side with Tony, he speaks a lot to that in his video. Well, we were there interviewing him, and not to, get the secret out, but he pretty much didn't know that that community lived in that area. And it was really, really eye-opening to him that there was this huge, small pocket of the Kurdish community was there, and how that affected, and how they blended in with the other communities there, because Plaza Mariachi is right across the street, and so you'll hear a lot about that during the videos, but I think it's a huge testament to the community engagement and how the artists really step into the community, and then also become informed on what they're going to design.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome.
And what is our schedule for getting the videos?
We're hoping by the end of the year, but as we know, once the holidays come in, things take longer to receive. I do know that they were pretty busy. So we wanted to schedule this back in September, but they pushed us all the way till November. And so we're hoping by the end of the year. If not, we'll have a New Year's gift, so to speak. Yeah.
So yeah, we could actually show them, I guess, at a PAC meeting or a
Yes,
commission
that would
meeting.
be the next one that once we have that, we would be able to present to you directly. So.
I'm just having a concern here that, didn't I hear recently there was some attacks on shelters? That wasn't any of these, were they?
Well, so one thing that I was able to note after the past 2 years, there was some damage to them. But in general, in speaking to WeGo, because they sent a representative out there while we were out there as well too, to make sure that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, that it's just general, I guess, accidents that happen. Sometimes there's just vandalism that happens, not necessarily to ours, but all shelters. Most recently, from my understanding, they had to replace a lot of glass. So it's just, I guess, what it is. And we just have to be diligent in terms of making sure everything is still looking good. One of the reasons why in the beginning when I first started noticing is like I literally drove by it, and I was able to call WeGo, and they already knew immediately about replacing it. And that was one in particular, mostly Thompson Lane or Thompson Station, because it's more trafficked. The others were pretty good, and they held up for a good 2 years. Yeah, I think that's just something that happens when things are out in the element, whether a vehicle hits it or it's weather, you're going to have some sort of, damage.
These were intentional, but
Yes, some of them were intentional.
And to speak to that, yeah, I know, like over on Gallatin Road, there was, I think, 4 or 5 in a row that were broken with like a baseball bat. But in the inception of this project, you ordered, what, 3 of the wraps to start with per project? So if something happens, we like at this point, we're replacing it 2 years.
Right.
But there are replacements available within the budget already, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's
Already
one thing that,
printed.
the wraps are relatively inexpensive. The issue is just the installation, right? So there's a cost to everything.
On the video piece, I just want to reiterate, I think that's so exciting, and it lifts up the artist to give them something else that they can take out to ultimately show for other projects outside of the city and to lift them up. So the more we can do that, I think it's just elevates everyone in the program, and it just gives another substantial piece. So thank you. I think that's super exciting.
Well, and I just want to give credit to our former communications manager, Darren Jackson.
Yes.
So this was
When
her
Darren brought this
idea
up, it was so exciting.
to do this, and artists like Amber Lelly at Donaldson Library have really appreciated being able to have this and use it. Of course, it benefits us as well, but yes, it's something we're able to offer artists.
I think that in the future, the more we can do that and the more we can document the process, that it really does help the artist. I mean, I know personally in my situation, it does. It just really, it's a great tool to have. It's one more thing we can give. So thank you so much. Now we're going to circle back that we have a full team. Let's go ahead and do C, approval of minutes. So if everyone can take a minute and review the minutes, if you haven't already, and then I can entertain a motion to approve. These are the minutes from August 8th, 2024. Does anyone have any changes to the minutes or any addition, anything that you see that needs to be changed? I can make a motion to approve if no one has any changes.
I just want for the project that's being done by Alicia, the Louis. I think there was some mention of planter boxes might be, and could be involved with the lower area, or some type of, rather than just being a blank space.
I do remember we had that, you brought that up in the last meeting as a question, and if that was something that was possible that we could do.
But that's the only thing I see that. Has that been started yet?
In the discussion part, who would be best to speak to this? Just Carlton's question.
Good morning. It's good to see you. So yeah, I can speak to that. So we're at in the middle of the fabrication phase. So their design has already been approved, and so I guess the fun would start now, where Alicia Bush, she would be painting on the mural cloth, and that'll go on for probably several months during the winter break. At which point we would then have our installers install that mural cloth on the wall of Luby, and that would be springtime. And we have to do it in warmer weather because of the temperatures. So it can adhere to the wall and it could stay. As far as the planters, we're still exploring the options on what we're going to do below the mural because there has been past vandalism and graffiti. And so we don't want anything to, we don't want to encourage anything or put kind of emphasis on that area so that they're doing more graffiti. Like, we want the piece to be the piece. And so we're still exploring those options with parks and seeing what can we do. I'm not quite sure if planters would be an option, but certainly the informational plaque, I think that would be really ideal. Just like Donaldson, and then possibly painting that maybe a solid color, just so it gives emphasis toward the mural itself. But that is something that we're still exploring right now.
Thank you. Thank you, Colton. So I'll make the motion to approve. May I get a second? Thank you, Commissioner Watts. Can I get a vote to approve? All in favor? Aye. Thank you all. Thank you. Okay, now we're going to. Item D, action items. Number 1 is the de-exit. I guess this is your, are you doing this? Yes, so you can move into number 1 and we'll visit those 2 and then we'll move into number 2.
Okay. When we create an agenda, oftentimes we have something that's in development and we anticipate it will be ready to be voted on at the time of the meeting, and it doesn't always work out that way, such is the case with action item number 1. However, as I've learned more information, I realize there are plenty of things that I want to update you all on, but also are excellent discussion items and things where I really would love the Public Art Committee's attention and deliberation, really being our thought partners. So if we will move on to the next slide, I'll tell you a little bit about some of our situations with the Lending Library. The Lending Library for us is something new for us, but also something that not a lot of public art programs have taken on. I think, there are a few maybe, but we're certainly one of the first to take this on through a public art program. With it, we knew there'd be some things we would learn along the way. And fortunately, the library, Nashville Public Library, has been such an outstanding partner. With these 2 branches, Madison and Southeast, they've been in place, for several years now. And we had 30 artworks at each location. We've had relatively little damage to artworks. Sometimes somebody drops it, the frame, gets damaged. We're able to have our art handlers, Art Up Nashville, pick it up, and it gets reframed and gets back into circulation. Very, very few times, and in fact, just these 3, we have had a situation where an artwork doesn't come back. And Helga was the one that I knew about, and in fact, it had progressed enough that the patron, reported it, lost, and then paid a fee. We have a nominal replacement fee that we've worked out with the library. And what I've learned is that the library's process is, when something is lost, is to hide it from the public view. So online, you're not going to see something that's actually not available for you to check out. So that they do that, but then their internal list of the collection, they actually keep it on that list. because as we all know, sometimes you lose something and what do you know? You find it in, where you're not expecting it, years later. And I'm sure the library, they get things that have been, paid for, that were lost, thought to be lost, and then they return to the collection. So they actually don't ever remove it from their official listing of their collection. For Metro Arts, currently, we still have it in our, collection. It's on our website currently, but we may need to rethink how we handle ones like this. What I learned about just recently are two other artworks. The case of these second and third one, they are also late enough that the patron has been billed, but they have not paid for them. So it's a little bit of a different situation. And these bring up issues that we had not really discussed before about how we handle the lending library. I had thought I might be bringing a deaccession recommendation to you for Helga, the first artwork, but now I'm reconsidering it for multiple reasons. So if you'll go to the next slide, Jesse. So here are the questions and considerations for us, things to think about. And before I jump into those, that photo on the right shows what Jesse was talking about. You'll see the frame on the artwork on the right, but then on the left, that is the vinyl of the artwork. So as any of these artworks are checked out, viewers to the library still see what's in the collection through these vinyl representations of the artwork. So the questions that have come up, when should we remove an artwork from our collection listings? Both, need to consider not only our website, but also the official collection inventory. Do we do as the library does and remove it online when lost, but then leave a notation in our collections records indefinitely with that, noting that it has been lost? Do we, when an artwork has been declared lost, do we leave that vinyl up? Do we leave the identification label up? I mean, it's something that people can't actually check out. And if we don't remove it, do we add something to the identification label indicating that it's currently not available? Another question that came up is if we do decide we want to replace an artwork, and as Campbell Commissioner West reminded me, this is something we had actually talked about many years ago, several years ago, at the beginning of this project, about if something were to leave the collection permanently, would we purchase a replacement artwork? And if so, would it be from a new artist the next time we do a call? Or would we go back to that same artist and purchase something from them? So a lot of questions. We can start on these questions, and I'd love to hear your thoughts, but then there's actually a second question. It might be good to talk about all of these first if you wanted to open this up.
I think we should open this up for conversation because I think we've got a lot of good thought leaders in the room and to think about how we can approach this. We did think this through a little at the inception of this program, and I think it's time now that to really kind of hash that out and discuss how we want to do it. And kind of moving forward in the next round, possibly including a few extra pieces to be able to replace when something does go missing. But I will say, out of all of the work that's been done, I think that it's been minimal that this has happened. I think that we were all kind of on the front end thinking, wonder how this will work out. But I think this is a minimal thing. And I think it's really smart, too, to have the vinyl there. That's a really cool thing to do. And then I want to open it up for, everybody's questions and thoughts on this specific lost and out of circulation questions.
I have a question, and this goes before all of these questions. Was there any discussion early on about insurance?
We do have insurance, there's a fine arts policy
Okay.
for Metro, but none of these would meet the deductible, so.
Okay, what's the deductible on it?
I believe it's 5,000.
Okay, so this is much lower, I know, because I've seen some of the pieces and those kind of things. Okay, just asking, because at some point,
It's a good question.
yeah, that was not explained. I guess the other thing is, all of these are a lot of questions. Have some of this been decided early on? Because it helps to find out whether we're trotting down the same road or whether or not there's new information out there as well.
Yeah, we had kind of thought, about the possibility, but then never had any, had any hard and fast rules about what we would do. And of course, we rely on our public art guidelines for so much of what we do and our guidance, but this is the kind of thing which wasn't anticipated in our public art guidelines. So we need to decide as we go what is makes the most sense for us.
I think with this being a pilot project, this is part of those processes and things that are going to come out of this, and that this is the time to make those kind of calls, because it was a pilot project and now we're saying, okay, this is working, this is not working. So how do we make it all kind of together?
So I have a question. The fee that is charged to the patron, who determines that fee? And is it enough for losing the piece?
It will not cover the cost of the artwork. It's a nominal fee. We're thinking about equity and wanting to make something, reasonable, and knowing that, yes, we can't charge the full price of the artwork. I think in this case, the patron was paid a $50 fee. There is still some...
$50?
Yes.
I mean, who came up with that fee?
We worked that out with the library.
That's okay for a book.
Right?
And I think at some point we need to probably think about what the cost of the art would be and notify patrons when they check it out of the value.
And they should pay a percentage of the value of that artwork.
I agree. Something that makes it, something that makes them want to keep up with it so they can return it.
To me, that's an insult to the artists.
Well, we're balancing that with, we want people to, think of the library. They don't charge late fees or, anymore. There's just an interest in, because the percent fund, we have funds to replace if needed. I would rather, take that chance and make it a nominal fee in these rare instances when it's an issue for us.
That's almost a bad, carry on. I mean, anyway, so that was one question. And I think that really needs to be revamped, but that's again my opinion. With regards to should you replace the artwork, should you replace an artwork from that same artist or get another artist, does the library maintain a certain number of pieces from certain artists, or is it just whatever fills the wall?
Well, this is our collection that's at the library. So we are in charge of, which artworks are selected. So, we had 60 each from a different artist. So, yes, so the question, I guess, is, do we want to, we have that opportunity that we wouldn't have, with another kind of artwork, something sculptural out in a park, where we can very easily, because this is a purchase versus, a commissioned site-specific artwork, we have an opportunity to go back very easily to that same artist if we wanted to. So that they could, remain in the collection. I mean, it's, I think for a lot of artists, it's an honor to be in the Lending Library collection. And, through no fault of their own, they might be out of the collection. So do we, have a commitment to that artist and want to go back to them?
But the other side of that coin is giving another artist an opportunity to be part of the collection that didn't make it on the list before.
True. And one of the things I'm going to be mentioning later is a possibility of next year doing another round of the Lending Library. So we certainly think there's going to be additional calls in the near future.
Okay,
I'm sorry, go on, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to have a few questions here, but the works are originals and they are pre-purchased by the artist, so is absolved of any kind of value loss, right? Okay. And I would have to agree the $50 doesn't seem to be an incentive to return anything, since someone might be getting a work of art for $50 that's worth a lot more than that. And it's relying on honor, of course, and people being upright with their commitment. And in my understanding, it's only a 6 months, a 3-month loan. 3 month.
3 months, and if it is not on hold by somebody else, you can extend it for another 3 months.
Yeah, I am a collector, and it takes me 3 months just to get something on the wall. And so I just try to decide where it might go. So I find that a very short period of time to enjoy the work, unless you're really in the habit of, changing your art in your home very quickly. Is this including business people who could put this in their office?
Certainly. Anybody with a library card.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody with a library card can check out. So you could take it home or you take it to your business. Yes.
Okay. And as far as replacing the work, I'm sure a lot of the artists are seasoned artists, and some might have moved out of the city or state. Some have, unfortunately, moved off the earth. And how do you want that to be the first decision and then an option to replace it with someone else, or just not have that kind of binding? Since they are already paid to have it, then it's just a question of honor that the city is going to support them as an artist. But we have so many people coming in town and so many changes so quickly now in Nashville. I would feel that's a bit of regional nepotism to just say you will always be, included no matter what. I think that's a little bit, that responsibility is really a bit broad, bit much to me. But to have, certainly to consider the artists who are now, considered, woven into our fabric as Nashville, should be considered greatly in the future collection. But just to replace it with them just because they have been paid for their work, so there shouldn't be any obligation beyond that.
Well, tied into what you said, certainly if we do additional calls, we could make a point for those artists who, especially if their artwork, in these rare instances had been lost, we could, certainly be sure to go to them and let them know of the opportunity if they wanted to reapply in a future round.
Is it the ambition of the loan service to continually have new works and for those who might just repeatedly use it,
Right.
that they will have options of new works?
Exactly.
But will that be specific to each library, or?
Good question. One of the things that we have talked about and recognized is that because these artworks need to be checked out and returned to the same branch, they don't go through the same system of traveling between libraries, just to minimize the art handling as much as possible. But you're right. The people who, go to their neighborhood branch, they're seeing the same, artworks all the time. So one of the things we have talked about is would we consider switching things up and moving things around? And that could be really exciting to move things around among the branches.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I just wanted to make a quick comment. In meeting and talking to a lot of these artists that are part of this new collection, there's seasoned artists, but there's also artists who this is just the biggest thing ever to them. And, I think to keep that in mind that being a part of a collection that's in the Nashville libraries is a big deal. And if it's not really their fault their piece got stolen, then it comes off of everyone's websites. It's no longer a part of the collection. I think it might be important just to keep that in mind a little bit too. Giving them an option could be, good thing.
I think we probably just need to archive it and note that it was lost and keep it in the collection as a notation and then continue on and then do calls for artists and whoever comes does that. Because ultimately, if we do this, we're either expanding or contracting the groups of artists that can be displayed. And it could be either or it could be and. And either one might be okay, but if you want to expand the recognition and having been in there, that's really, I think, what artists want if they've already been paid for the piece itself. Going back to them, I think, then could contract as to who else might get that opportunity, or it could expand. But either way, I think archiving it, using those vinyls, and noting that this artist was here. Here's a vinyl of the art which was lost, and doing that and leaving it on the website. I'm sorry, it'll live there forever, much longer than physical locations. I think the other thing is that libraries don't have the same. Well, they do have some community value, but it's amazing which libraries people go to get stuff. Because I've heard people, I have not checked anything out of the library in probably about 20 years. Because most of the stuff I get online. And I pay a fee online. And I'm doing archiving on something from the Tennessean. I'm paying and doing it all online. So it's a different nature of where we are. I think the archiving needs to certainly be on Metro Arts' website, if no place else. Because this is the genesis, and to make sure that it is there, that it is maintained, and that artists are recognized there with the most detail. Because the library is in this, but once these collections move, they're no longer on their website, is it?
Not for that specific branch. If we moved them, they would have to move.
I know, that's the point. So the library is not the permanent location for the information. I think Metro Arts needs to look at how it needs to do that long-term and make sure that that's done regardless of the location of the library branches.
And I think it's interesting to that point, the library's explanation to Ann Leslie as to why they take it off the public-facing on their website, because obviously it's not available, but they keep it archived in theirs, which is great. So you're kind of, to your point. And one of the reasonings behind that is that, 2 years could go by and all of a sudden someone finds it in a house, notified, and then it comes back too. So that's something else that can happen.
If it comes back, then it's real simple. You just put it back in there and note it again and put it up there. But if it's not for checkout, I think it's for recognition. And I think Metro Arts has to be kind of I think Metro Arts needs to have all of the art, regardless of locations, and keep it permanently in some kind of internet or a website venue, because then I can look up artists who've been in and out and everything else and know who they are. And it's a historical piece. I'm doing a history for somebody who has no notes. That's why I'm in the Tennessean. So all of this stuff from a historical perspective bothers me, because then it just goes away. And the significance is really the history, and it's Metro Arts history, and as the agent for the city arts community.
I just obviously this is new and it's growing, and new thoughts are implemented each year. I first heard of this when when I lived in Los Angeles, the LA County Museum started a loan program, but they were for rent, and they had to adequately insure the work. But you're talking thousands of dollars when that was occurring. The thing is that I don't think it's difficult to assume an artwork is like a book. It's inherently more expensive. It can't be replaced if it's an original. I'm a photographer. I know that can be replaced, but as long as there's an original, digital or negative. But is there a limit on how many one can rent? And if they lose it or something, are they sort of banned from loaning any more works?
It is just one artwork checked out per library card at a time. So if you had a family with multiple cards, I guess you could have more than one at home.
5-year-olds can get a card.
They can. But certainly, I have learned that branch managers have a lot of discretion as, individual situations come up and, with patrons. And I do have the understanding that, yes, they are able to, put a note in the file and, can do that. I don't know if it's, a ban but yes, there is some of that managers are able to do if they see somebody continuing to, abuse the library and the circulation. Of all kinds of things. One other thing you mentioned, these are not like books, and we understand that, and the library understands that too. I don't know if you all have heard about all the different kinds of things that the Nashville Public Library has in their system to that people can check out. They have instruments, there's ukuleles, there's tools, there is all kinds of different things. So they are accustomed to things beyond, books and other kinds of media like that. Certainly instruments and things that are have a much more or higher value than most books.
Are the artists aware? Are the artists aware that their pieces are missing?
I have not reached out to them, but that is kind of part of this conversation. I would love to hear, what you all think. I'm going to show you a slide about our guidelines. They are very much, our guidelines are set up with the understanding of works that we have commissioned that are site specific. This is a bit different in that it's a purchase and then we do with it, place it where we want. It's a bit different than how the guidelines were set up. Certainly if we, depending on how this conversation goes, and if we do move towards, deaccessioning, then certainly that would be something I would want to notify the artist about.
Well, I have pieces of artwork in my house. If they go missing, they're mine and they're my responsibility. So I think we need to do the same with that in terms of it's Metro Arts art and stuff. And because if we get into that, we get into another kind of piece, because while we're doing that, we already have paid the artist and everything else. So it's not like the piece is going back to them.
No, because they, like Jesse mentioned, they have it in their portfolios, and they would probably want to note that, he's no longer available for checkout.
Yeah. And the library already does that. That's why I said I think going back to the artists is different. Because like I said, I have original pieces in my house. If I lose them, I lose them. The artists and I don't have an agreement for me to go back and tell them it's gone. I tell the police because it's usually insured. So I really do think we need to look at what does that look like in terms of insurance and those kind of things and how we could do something around that. And that's because it belongs to Metro Arts. I think there's some other things, and the artists, if it's not available and it's lost, they'll see it, but it's because it was public art, but we still own it. So I think you get into another process that takes you down another road, and it could. The other thing is, we're no longer a small city, folks. We need to treat this like a big city issue. And I love the notion of things, and I've lived in a lot of large cities, and they do things with insurance. I hate insurance too, by the way. But some of those things that really protect the value of it and things of that sort, because we don't know how, where it's going. It's going to a house somewhere. And we like it, and it's going to come back, just like books. And most of the time it does. When it doesn't come back is when we have these issues and stuff. So I think that's something to think about. I think if purchasing a replacement artwork, I think is something that I'm not sure that we need to do that, because it's just a reduction of the artwork by 1 or 2 or 3 pieces or something like that. Because otherwise we'll always be repurchasing artwork. And if I have no budget, there's not always going to be that kind of budget out there. And looking forward, the question becomes, what are we doing? Are we doing it? Because you're going to retire it at some point. So my question is, if you're going to retire the collection, then I think we just do that. And if it gets lost, that's one less piece that then can go out during that time that it's available. I mean, those are just some simple things I think that we probably need to look at from a simple perspective, because if we go through a whole lot of notifications and repurchasing and things of that sort, it's going to impact the budget. And we can do a call for artists at any time for a collection, so they could come back in and bring a different piece back in at a later time, if that's what they want to do. Is that not correct? Okay, yeah.
Who's making those purchasing decisions at this time?
When we do a call, and which ones? Is that what
Who's the curator?
Jessica and Jesse were the project, he's the project manager who oversaw this call. And then we had a selection panel. So library
So
representative.
it's not one individual?
No.
It's the community is the
Yeah,
curator.
community selection panel.
It's community curated, right?
I had a question. Commissioner Watts brought up something. When you retire an artwork, or you retire the whole collection, do you offer it to the public for sale?
Well, we have never retired anything or deaccessioned anything yet in our collection. And, when it, for something like this, there could be a time when the collection gets to a point that we decide to retire it. I would like to think that we could, there'd still be other places where it would be new and exciting to people. The fact that the artwork itself is pretty well protected. It's just the framing, which, we can reframe, that is taking the majority of the wear and tear. And after 3 years, the fact that only 3 are missing, and the fact, like Jesse mentioned, these are going out the door, quite a bit. And so I feel like, we have, it's a pretty good record for, how the public has treated the artwork and the fact that we've had so very little damage. So I don't know that there will be a time where we'll retire this collection. Can you?
In thinking big city thoughts, I mean, we're thinking this is going to go on for quite a number of years. And yes, you may have it on a cycle and you have this grouping at this place and this library and you move it around. But afterwards, it's only so many times you could cycle it around. After that time, the public may want to view a whole new collection altogether. So instead of having to store them somewhere, I was just suggesting or maybe asking if it's put in the thought in somebody's mind, maybe you can offer it for sale to the public.
Generally, the public art guidelines, and this is kind of standard amongst all public art programs, that when you deaccession it, you can offer it to the original artist, but then you are not. Typically we don't offer it for sale. I don't think programs do that.
Right, like I could speak kind of like secondary market. So I think with government that works a little differently. I love everything that this is coming up. Thinking on what Jesse said about the artist and being in the collection. I think that is something to certainly keep in mind because it's a big honor to be in the Nashville Library collection, right? That can stay within their resume and those things. I would feel inclined to invite the artist that, and again, this is a very rare sort of 3 years, 3 pieces, but to have that artist reapply in the next round of lending library and then have something like 3 or 4 works in each, because one question I'd ask Ann Leslie was, do we have anything that we did not hang? Like, did we get so much work that we have things that are not hanging? Can we replace it? We do not, because everything was very much in demand. And so maybe having some pieces that can fill those spots. To your question, Commissioner Phillips, I think one thing we should all look at is having more of a rotating collection. So perhaps rather than thinking of retiring work from the library, there are so many metro buildings that need artwork in the city. And so any metro building, we can work with that. I mean, everything from think like waste to health to whatever you have. So we can I'm not sure if you've seen the courthouse collection downtown, but that was something that I was part of before I was a commissioner. And so that's something that Ann Leslie can speak to as far as the courthouse collection, but that's in my mind how you never really retire the work. And to speak to the guidelines as well, you got to think when public art was first started in the city, these were commissioned permanent works. So having a collection that can hopefully circulate and rotate within Metro, I would hope that we would keep more out of storage than in storage. As Carlton knows, you know, things don't get seen if they're in storage. It's something I live daily. And then to the insurance piece, who would we speak to within Metro? Because I know for me, probably like with the gallery, if my threshold on insurance is $5,000, then I've got to look at several things to see if I need to make a claim or not. So what do we need to do, and who do we speak to in terms of where is that? Because if the deductible is $5,000, these pieces max out at, remind me.
It was, I cannot remember off the top of my head what these were in the first round.
Right.
It's 2,000 for the second.
We
round.
increased to 2,000 on the second
Yes.
round. Oh, hey, Stacy.
Oh, I was just saying 2,000.
2,000. So, yeah, so at that sense, we would need to speak to, I guess, Metro Insurance and find out what the deductible is. And, you know, for me, that would be too low to make a claim. And so but that's a totally different situation. So I think those are all things. Now, back to the fee.
Art value sometimes goes up, so the fact of the matter is that we have to factor that in about doing things. Unlike cars, you drive off a lot, it's not worth what you paid 10 minutes ago. Art is one of those things where value continues to go up, and so some other things happen. It goes up for the very reason Carlton said, that people are no longer here. The artist is no longer available to do any work because they've made their transitions, or they've now become quite famous in the interim, and that small piece that we valued at $2,000 could now be worth 15, 16. So you got to, you know, this is like running a museum, and really that's what it is. It's a lending library, but it's a museum of art, and that's another story. Which does, I think, the questions are quite great, and I think we're bringing more to you, which I'm sure you're happy about. But a lot of this, I think, is really is what do you want this to do long term, and if it goes up in value, how do you assess that? Because it could. And I think that's something to think about, and again, it's Metro Arts collection, and the library is making the vehicle possible for you to share it with the broader community, which is okay. But somewhere along the way, I think all of this needs to be looked at in light of what do you want it to be long term for artists, for the community, and how does the relationship with the library work? And is it working well? And it seems to be. And the fact that they don't charge fees has nothing to do with what happens, you know, with respect to fees being charged to people. And I think you've got to come up with at least the value of the art that says, you know, that you're taking a piece of art worth $2,000, and you need to be careful and return it at the time. I mean, it's a contractual relationship. The library card is a contractual relationship. I take the book out, or the art piece, and then I agree based on the fact that I have it, because that's what it is, and I return it. And if I don't return it, books are easy to replace these days, and most of them have gone digital. That's another story. So libraries probably are not charging fees because it's a real difficult kind of a thing to do. But the art itself is a one of a kind, and I think we need to value it as such and figure out how we impress upon people that this is something that you should return, and the value, which implies that we might come after you for the value, because that's a small claims court issue. Unfortunately, it meets that criteria.
I just wanted to add to that. I ran an art gallery for 20 years and then also collecting myself, and lived in different states. I know that some insurance companies, I don't know how the city does it, but for private ownership, home ownership, if you have anything over 5,000, let's just use that amount, and that was in North Carolina, you have to present an appraisal every 3 to 5 years to rationalize that value. If we are so fortunate to get pieces and it becomes a Banksy, and all of a sudden it's worth $1 million, then that has to be assessed. My question is, at the time that I was doing all of this, and I still work, there were only 2 appraisers in the whole state, okay, who were accredited. I had insurance companies calling me about collection or piece as an unofficial value for an insurance claim, but I was not an official appraiser. Do we know it? One I know is no longer with us, and then the other one was at Swanee. I have not talked with her in quite some time. Who are these appraisers in the state? Because there are very few, if at all, in some cases. And do we have someone that we can connect with that can do this service for us in the times? But you're not dealing with a whole lot of pieces that are, I think, over 5,000. But it becomes a big deal once. And then my second question is, what about having a time period to loan and then sort of rotate them out with the ambition of increasing our collection if there's the budget to allow for that? So they say it's in rotation for 5 years, and then it rotates out. And that becomes a permanent piece in those various departments you say they so sorely need artwork. I'd be honest with you, I was just at a doctor's appointment, and you know, hospitals are very adamant about having something on the walls when you walk down to the operation room or the, you know, or the, you know, because it adds to one's temperament, and so can we consider something like that so we can keep artists being pursued and freshening up the collection and rotating, then it's still maintained as a part of the collection?
We can certainly consider it, and we have been considering a rotation. One of the things we of course have to balance this with is just staff capacity, and it's a big, as Jesse can attest, it's just a big job getting them installed in the first place, and then to think of taking all of that off and rethinking the layout and the different branches. It's like doing it all over again, even though the artwork is purchased. So yeah, I do think, as the way we serve the public, it certainly would be a good idea. The libraries would probably be interested, but we just want to balance it with, when it fits well in our schedule of projects. And yeah, it's certainly something we've talked about, though.
I have lots of questions, but I'm going to keep it simple. The care, are they given instructions not to put them in direct sunlight? Do we put UV glass on the artworks that are loaned out? And, just moisture, putting it in the kitchen and laundry room, wherever they might put it, where it could get damaged.
Yes. I'm pleased to say that, yes, we have art handling instructions that go with each artwork. They are in English, Spanish, Arabic, and Kurdish, and address just the things that you mentioned. Okay. We also supply a hanger, so that if somebody doesn't happen to have a nail and hanger at their house, they can pick up one from the library when they check out. And of course, there's a wire on the back. So we try to make it as easy as possible for folks who have just not, had a lot of art in their home and may be unfamiliar with what they need to do.
Now, what if they're a renter and they're not allowed to put a nail in the wall?
Well, they can always lean it up against a wall carefully.
Okay.
Stacy, did you have a question or a comment?
Oh, gosh. I think that we may have reached consensus on not replacing the artwork, but inviting the artist to resubmit. I agreed with, I think, everyone who voiced that opinion. And my other comment wasn't actually on the current topic. Well, it is the topic, but the vinyl and whether to replace it. And I feel like, we do need to talk about the time frame of when we, deaccession or archive the piece, and I'm not sure we should keep it on, even though it's sad to see it go. It's not available anymore, so maybe it shouldn't be on the wall. That's what I'm thinking. And we had also talked about rotating the collections amongst the libraries so that community members see different art. And you know, do we wait a year to retire a piece if it hasn't shown up, or you know, if that's only 4 quarters, that you know maybe it needs to be 2 years, but you know, do we rotate every 5 years? You know, these are good questions. I don't necessarily have the answers yet, but I like the idea of changing it up for the libraries.
Thank you, Stacy.
Madam Chair, are there some guidelines that are being done around the country that we could look at and understand? I'm a believer that there's nothing new under the sun, except where it shines every day, as it rises and it sets. But at some point, I think we just need to look at what is the best practices, why, and whether or not we should adapt them, or is there something we're doing that people are coming to us for that we know we need to do. So I think it's a combination of factors. It's not one or the other. And then coming up with a policy, recognizing policies aren't stagnant. They can always be changed, reviewed, and everything else. So what's decided really is not the final end-all, be-all. And at some point, you might need to have guidelines as to when you will review policies. And that's me being the process person here and the oversight person. But when will you review them? And how will you change them and why? I mean, that's just a simple process, because that always is the thing that sometimes as government, we just do it, put the mortar on, and it stays there until the mortar crumbles, and then we say, oops. So I think it would be good to look at that, and then to look at, you know, when should you review, why should you review, and look at the experts in the field, because I think there's a lot of things that need to be looked at here.
That leads probably right into the next slide. Thank you, Commissioner Watts. We have our
One
sorry,
question.
sorry,
Yeah, just one point on the $50 replacement piece. I hear everybody loud and clear that is low to replace as a fine. I also want us to keep in mind one of the reasons we started this program, which is equity, is that a lot of people, you know, we aren't all blessed to go into a gallery and purchase a piece of work that has this value. And I just want us all to keep that in mind as we work through these questions, that we are not taking the opportunity, or in the mindset, the opportunity of, oh, if I check this out and the frame gets broken, I'm going to need to pay $2,000. We need to have a good policy around what that is. But I think it's not realistic to ask a person that is loaned out a piece to pay for the full replacement value themselves. I do think that some kind of, if you do that, you don't get to check one out again, something like that. But just I want to keep that piece front of mind, that this is another program so the full community can have access. And I just, yeah, that was mine.
I have one thing I wanted to ask. What are our plans as far as future lending library calls? Are there more on the agenda? Are there several being planned now? Is there ultimately a goal to get them in a certain number of libraries?
Great question. Certainly, the library is excited about this program. We have more branches already on a list, and if we were to reach out again, there might even be additional branches. I mean, certainly I think we would love for all branches that are interested and have room for a lending library collection to have it. And we might be able to complete this in one more round, a third round, but it might be 2 more rounds to do that. But certainly we have talked about it, and in fact, Jessica Ingram, our former public art manager, she encouraged doing one in the beginning of 2025. And so you'll see a slide later on talking about our 25th anniversary of the public art program. That could be one of those projects for us that we can talk about later today.
Thank you, Sean. And Leslie, you want to move forward to that because I think some of this ties into
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yes. Well, Commissioner Watts mentioned, what are your policies? Go to those. We do have our public art guidelines, and as I mentioned, fortunately, the people who drafted that thought of so many things and looked at so many public art guidelines that were already in existence across the country. The lending library is a little bit new for us, so the things that we're encountering maybe aren't covered in the public art guidelines. There is, of course, library policy, so many of the things we have, tried to anticipate, and we have a policy related to the lending library that we have developed with the library, but we always knew that it would need to evolve. So this conversation certainly helps with that. But one of the things that, I had thought I might be bringing to you all was deaccessioning of artwork. And in looking at our public art guidelines that we review as a commission every so often, and updates are made, it does not cover what we're talking about here with a potential loss of an artwork. Other public art guidelines do address, such things as theft, accident, or natural disaster. So it makes me realize, there are probably some things related to deaccessioning that we will need to address at some point in time. With our public art guidelines. You can see that box in red, that gives the reasons that an artwork could be deaccessioned, and it's very much geared towards artworks that are site-specific. So much of it deals with, the site changing and why the artwork is no longer appropriate there, and how you might move it for that reason. But yes, it does not cover the situation we're dealing with here.
Is that what's currently under review by legal? Okay.
Yeah, so I asked them, and yes, they're looking at a lot of things for us, so that's something down the road we might need to change. Next slide, Jesse. The next part of this action item, there is a reciting that I thought we might need to consider. And certainly I want to talk about it. We are not at a final stage where I have a recommendation for you, but in addition to deaccessioning, the guidelines speak to reciting, where a site is no longer appropriate, but an artwork needs to be moved. And so that situation has come up with an artwork that we have called Lotus, which I think is the next slide. Can you give them a quick picture of it? So so this is Lotus. It was at Fannie Mae Dees Park. It was one of our bike racks, and that was a program that we started on several years ago. We've actually done, I think, 3 or 4 phases of the bike rack program. But it was so great in that it allowed artists, public artists, who didn't have maybe the experience doing very large-scale site-specific work to offer a design. And the designs were awards. They were awarded designs, and then Metro Arts took on the fabrication of them. So that's how this one worked. It ended up, because of a fabrication issue, nothing wrong with the artist design, but because it did not have weep holes, rust formed on the inside, and there were just too many parts of this at the junction points where it became no longer structurally stable. So we needed to move it. And if you'll go back, I think to this slide. We have, let the artist know that we have it in storage and that we would like to consider some new locations for this artwork. Because that artwork was made with recycled bicycle frames. I mean, it certainly, we think it would be significant at a place that promotes cycling, such as Nashville Department of Transportation, parks, even WeGo. And I have reached out to them to see if there might be an interior location, perhaps a suspended spot where we could place Lotus and give it a new life in a new location. So nothing has been firmed up on that. I'll continue to talk to these departments and hope to bring something to you all after the first of the year, perhaps at our January or February meeting.
Will there be a budget to, is the artist still available?
Is the artist what?
Still available for that piece?
Yes, the artist is still available. It's Michael Allison, still available. For this project with the bike racks, the artist wasn't involved with the fabrication or installation, but certainly we would have dialogue with them, communication, as we made recommendations and brought recommendations to the Public Art Committee and the Commission. So yes, they would definitely be involved.
Could they be involved with the restoration or?
That's possible. I mean, certainly we do that when the artist has been responsible for the original fabrication, but when they're not, I don't know that we're, necessarily tied to doing that in the same way we would with other projects, but we would always keep them involved. So yes, we don't need to do anything with this, but I just wanted to let you know about what I'm learning as we go along with both deaccessioning and reciting.
Thank you, Ann Leslie. That's a lot of information to take in and to take back, and so let us know how we can help outside of that. So we will not be voting on action item 1. We will move on to, as long as everybody's ready, move on to action item number 2, which is the Arthur Avenue Public Art Lighting Artist and Site Work Budget.
Thank you. This one actually is an action item. We are bringing a recommendation to you for this. I know some of you have not been on the Public Art Committee for as long as others have. So in my next slides, I'm going to give a bit of a recap on this project. Arthur Avenue, the underpass, you see a picture of it there, is in North Nashville. It is one of the connectors that was left when the interstate came through. And of course, the interstate really, dead-ended a lot of streets, but Arthur Avenue is one of those few connectors. Metro Public Works, which is now much of that is now Nashville Department of Transportation, and Metro Planning, were doing investigation and doing research with communities about walking and biking. Several years ago, M. Simone Boyd, artist and neighborhood organizer, through that effort with Public Works and Planning, she engaged with over 300 people in the neighborhood. What came through was an interest in slowing traffic, safer crossings, and especially at this site, in lighting for the underpass. So Simone Boyd, along with Metro Arts and Nashville Department of Transportation, applied for an NEA grant and were successful. And the main purpose of the project would be for public art lighting. It was only a $75,000 grant. So that, with the $75,000 match that came from the Public Art Fund, it was, not going to allow for a huge project. As you all have seen enough, that public art projects arts can be expensive, and after COVID, they're even more expensive. So because the intention and the expectation and the hope for this area was so much greater than that budget could allow, if you'll go to the next slide, Jesse, we looked to expanding that budget. So in November of 2022, the commission increased the budget for an artist to come in to fabricate, install public art lighting, and it's actually a very large space. If you have driven through it, it's low and it's actually very long. There's at least 8 lanes of traffic above, and it goes at a diagonal, so it really is a long space there underneath Arthur Avenue.
Where is this exactly?
Yeah. Do you know where the Elizabeth Park Community Center is?
Give me something else.
Okay.
I'm a math person.
Yeah.
So.
You know where the North Branch Library is?
You don't keep telling me spots.
Monroe Kroger.
Yes.
So it's so if you're coming out of that.
Rosa Parks?
No, it's literally so Kroger. If you're on Monroe, yes, Monroe sits here, right?
Okay, Monroe going west.
Monroe going west. You would turn down a road. There used to be a really big church where they got hit by the tornado in 2010. 15th Avenue Baptist, yes. It's right in that area. That's where that exactly is.
Okay.
It's just a little bit past that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's close to Mount Zion. That's the only place that you can go under.
It's a little bit further from Mount Zion, but you're right in the right area. Yes, you are in the right area.
I know where it is. Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out where it is because there's very few spots that will go over or under 40 at all. So, okay, so that's why I'm going. Okay, where is it?
So the budget was increased by the commission, and along with that 75,000 NEA match were identified for use on this public art project. NDOT, Nashville Department of Transportation, who has been our partner on this, they graciously came in with a commitment of an additional 100,000, which allowed us to increase the artist budget to 500,000. And they came in after we had brought in semifinalists, and these artists came as it was an invitational where we had already vetted artists who had experience doing this kind of public art lighting. And they let us know that it was going to be hard to do what we expected with 400,000. So NDOT was able to come in with an additional 100,000, which allowed us to do that. Semifinalists all came in July 2023. And our community selection panel, which we have a new community selection panel for each project. This panel selected artist Alex Braden and his proposal Be As Water. I mentioned the commission approved that 400,000 with the additional 75. And NDOT committed their 100,000, which prompted Metro Arts to increase the artist budget. But since Alex Braden's selection, we have continued to work not only with the artist as they're refining their design, but with NDOT and with Barge to determine site work cost. Now, site work costs are something that we expect to be a part of every site-specific project. Oftentimes, it's bringing electrical to the site, or just anything about prepping that metro property that we can do, so that the artist budget can be on the artwork itself. And so, typically, that is 20% of our artist budget. But at times it needs to be more. And so that's what kind of where this is going. And I wanted to get some clarification about budgets and bring a recommendation to you about increasing that site work budget. We don't typically inform you all of the site work budget, and, as long as it's, within that 20%. But certainly here we see a need where it might be, and we would like to get that approval from you before we move forward with different vendors.
What are you asking us to approve?
Well, I'm going to get to it. I'm sorry. I kind of got ahead of myself.
I see numbers up there.
Yeah,
and they
yeah.
keep rolling.
Yep.
So-
Yes. Okay. One point of clarification was, as we've been working with NDOT, is that their $100,000, they can't pay the artist directly. Their funds need to be used exclusively for infrastructure. And as we've talked to vendors about different kinds of site work that we might do with a Metro contract, there are different costs that we realize are going to be, fit that $100,000 and be appropriate for NDOT to pay. But that also means that when we increased that artist budget to $500,000, we did that a little prematurely, thinking that NDOT money was coming into that. And so that's one of the things I'm coming to you all with, is officially getting it on the record to increase the artist budget to $500,000 coming from percent fund. Additionally, we, as I mentioned, we have been looking at anticipated site work that would take place at this project. Painting the I-beams that you see that are green now was something that the artists did not include in their budget, because at that time we didn't know if TDOT would allow it. This is one of the other negotiations that we've learned little bits along the way. Until you ask a question, you're not going to, get answers about it. And, there's TDOT guidelines for projects such as this, but until you really have a concrete design, there are some things that you're just not going to be able to determine. So the artists did not include that kind of base painting in their budget. And it's something that we're delighted that we got that approval from TDOT that we could paint those. That is that those painted I-beams are something that TDOT painted originally. They keep up every so often, but they are not willing to cover it. If we wanted to change the color, it would be up to Metro to do that. The artist budget, as I said, they had not even considered that. But if we were to do it, it would certainly provide the appropriate backdrop to this artwork, which, those lights I showed you earlier, all those pixel lights. Imagine all of those lights against a dark blue is going to feel much more sky-like than against the green of these I-beams, the way they're currently painted. And of course, they have touched them up, so even this green paint is not, pristine looking. So if we were to repaint, it would involve some prep work as directed by TDOT, as well as repainting. There's some hazmat considerations. So this painting can get pricey. So that was one thing we would like to consider doing. Sidewalk repair, we have gotten a quote for that of $75,000. And then there's electrical work to be done, bringing, electrical conduit to the artwork, having a meter, that Metro Arts, will be paying for, that kind of thing. So with that, unfortunately, the only quote that we have in place right now is the sidewalk one, but our best estimates are that electrical might be $100,000 and $300,000 for the painting.
As you go through, which part of this is coming out of the artist budget, and which part of this is from the infrastructure? Because that would
Yeah,
help me
so all of
understand
those
it.
costs that you see identified as site work are ones that Metro, either through NDOT or Metro Arts, would be paying for. So the artist is paying for a whole host of other things. So the actual lighting fixtures, all of the lights that are going to be part of the artist design, across the whole expanse of this bridge, as well as the ones on the top of the abutment wall. Those are the kind of lighting fixtures that the artist is going to be covering in their budget. Of course, they're also covering, so the purchase of those, the installation of those, insurance, the structural, engineered drawings, all of those kinds of things, any travel, all those things are coming out of the artist budget.
Do you have this laid out a little bit? I like all the detail, but do you have this laid out as to what this would look like in terms of columns? Artist budget covers this is that, because you're asking us to improve the artist budget, that I realize. And the other parts of the budget, are we approving those, or is this additional just information for us?
So the artist budget is kind of, within the proposal, it outlines everything the artist is responsible for to bring the artwork, to the site. So that is what is already at 400, and so I'm just asking to up that to 500 to kind of cover, what can't be covered with NDOT's 100,000. And then beyond that, we are expecting that our site work might be up to 400, and are hoping that you all can authorize us to pay up to 400 for site work. So it's two, and if you'll go to the next slides, so that's our recommendation. Increasing the artist budget to 500,000 and authorizing up to 400,000 for site work.
What was the original anticipated cost for this project?
We had it at 400, and then very early on, the NEA grant project was for a $150,000 project. So that really just didn't match the expectation of the community in this site. So it was 400, and then with NDOT, we upped it to 500, but now we realize that should go to some of those additional site work costs.
I have a question. This is just to construct it, right? Anything that's involving lighting or kinetic is going to have maintenance. And it's outside, it's under a bridge. Maintenance. My short tale is that I was on the airport arts board, and that piece that they had running in front of the airport, the new airport at the time, it was kinetic, and there was no anticipation of its maintenance or the wind, literally, and tornadoes and all kinds of, torrential rain and wind, and it literally destroyed probably within 2 or 3 years. Yeah, and there was no means to repair it. The artist wanted a whole lot more money to correct it in any way. What is the maintenance schedule or replacing bulbs? I mean, probably it's all LED, but still, though, I just replaced one in my car. I know they go out.
Right.
So
maintenance is always a concern of ours. And at this point in the project, through the development of the design, the artists know that they are responsible for a maintenance manual. And as we have the review that takes place at multiple steps along the way, we have Barge Design, who's helping us think through what, changes we can make to make it, more maintenance free or as much maintenance free as possible. And for this project, because TDOT is involved, they are going to be approving it too, along with NDOT. So it's getting a lot of experts who are thinking about it and keeping maintenance in mind. For this project, and probably a model for all of our upcoming projects as well, we are developing an MOU with Nashville Department of Transportation. One of the things that should be happening always, you know, with underpasses is that the functional lighting is always up and running. That's been an issue with this one. It's not quite clear, is that TDOT, is that NDOT, is that NES? So we are looking into that, but things like that and responsibility and who takes care of what will be outlined in that MOU, that memorandum of understanding that we have with Nashville Department of Transportation. As far as funds for maintenance, we have our percent fund, which allows us to cover a large, say if we had to do a large repair of the LEDs, anything 5,000 or above can be covered through our percent fund. Anything less than that, we take care of through our 4% fund that we ask for every year from council, part of the Metro budget. So we do have funds available for maintenance.
There's a warranty as well, correct, on
Yes.
everything from
Yeah.
the artist?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, certainly for a year, an artist's warranty is available, and of course there may be additional warranties attached to these lighting fixtures too, and that will all come to us as part of the maintenance manual. But that's a very good question. We think about that all the time.
Thank you. And Leslie, I think that it's important to think this project's been going on since well before the pandemic. Costs have gone up. And in addition to that, the partners, all of the site work it's part of it. And so we really need to take this budget to 500. We all knew when this came to us that 150 was not going to touch it. And we all agreed as a commission, as a committee and a commission, that's why we boosted the budget when we did, because that was just incredibly low. All the work that's gone into this, and I just want to recommend that we approve this for moving forward. We don't want to hold this up longer than it has been. Any other good thoughts, questions?
Just budget-wise, what is this? What's the consequence of such an increase? Will that affect other things that are going on?
We have money in the percent fund, so it's, you know, I think it's just more important to make the budget appropriate for the site as we learn new things about the site and what costs are related to it. So we have funds, so it's not taking away from any other project.
Thank you, everyone, for thoughtful. Any other questions? Okay, we have a recommendation. The Public Art Team recommends increasing the artist budget for Arthur Avenue Public Lighting Project to $500,000 and authorizing up to $400,000 for site work. Any other questions and discussion? I'll entertain a motion to approve.
A second.
Then I'll entertain a motion to approve the increase to the artist budget for Arthur Avenue Public Lighting Project to $500,000 and authorizing up to $400,000 for site work. Second.
Now I'll take it.
Thank you, Sean, for that second. Motion passes. Thank you, everybody. Oh, sorry. I need a vote from everyone. Sorry, I drove into town this morning. All in favor? Aye. Thank you all very much. Motion passes. Okay, we have 2 items of new and old business, and I'm going to turn this over to Ann Leslie. Very exciting, 25th anniversary of public art coming up in June. So this is for us to all think about, and hand it over to you.
All right. Here's a photo that we have from the signing. That's Mayor Bill Purcell, which many of you will remember. So this is a momentous occasion for our public art program, and how do we wish to recognize it? Now is the time to think about this. June 2nd is the official date, but now is the time to start thinking about what we're most excited about as far as projects and programs. Budget talks will be happening very soon, so we need to put in those requests based on the projects and programs we might like to proceed with. Next slide, please. I was reminded of a previous anniversary, the 40th anniversary of Metro Arts took place in 2018. We celebrated a number of different ways. We had a rebranding of Metro Arts, but on the public art side, we purchased art from local artists. We called it 40 for 40, and I think it truly was an amazing success. We, through this program, were able to add to our collection. We supported local artists through these purchases. We even supported local businesses, framers, the art handlers, the sign makers through these installations. And of course, we made public art available to Metro employees and the public who passed through these city-owned buildings. And it certainly gave us a great way to celebrate our 40th anniversary. So here are a few photos. At the bottom left, that was a reception we had at the courthouse. There next to that was a reception, a holiday reception that we had at the Metro office building. And one of my favorite artworks is by artist Sam Dunson, and that is being installed in the Metro Finance offices by Art Up Nashville. So with that model, I started brainstorming. Others have shared ideas too. Our public art team, Dr. Coleman, Chair West. We've talked today about launching a new lending library call. That would certainly be easy-ish. I mean, it's still a lot of work, but we know what we're doing. We've done it before. We could support more local artists, make art more accessible to Nashvillians. We also talked about this second item, launching a rotating art collection for Metro offices. There has been interest. I've had calls where people expect that can they come by our storage, and see all the artwork that could be in their office. And we don't have anything like that. But do we want to purchase artwork that could be available for Metro offices? I've learned that the state of Tennessee has such a model, and I'm getting more information on that. If we use the percent fund, the only thing we would need to keep in mind that these need to be in publicly accessible spaces, and can't be in places that are off limits to the public. We could also recite some of the things that we already have. Those in the courthouse and Metro office building have been there a few years. And that doesn't. Right? That's not 2001. The 2021 is when the original lending library collection was installed. And then, of course, 2018 for the courthouse collection. After these have been there a while, is that a good reason to move them around? Certainly, I'd like to consider that. Another idea, different from these first ones, is to more in the programming area and educational aspect of our collection, but developing a public art ambassadors program. I've talked to the Historical Commission and just seen information from other departments where they invite citizens to come and learn a little more, get kind of a behind the scenes look at a program, and they can then help to spread the word in their communities. The one I was thinking of might even be modeled almost after a speakers bureau. If we hired artists who could, we could train them, teach them more about our collection, and then if they went to community groups, they could tell them about their artistic practice, but then also tell them about the collection as a whole. That's one idea. We talked today about these content that ITS has been so great about creating for new artworks. What if we thought about going back to some of our existing artworks in our collection? And so expanding the promotion and the media resources. These could be on our website, on our YouTube channel, something we could offer our artists. But really, there's so much to our artworks that can't just be shared on the by visiting them. Maybe there's interviews and some other information that would really make the artwork come to life. We've talked about an equity analysis in the past. I'm a historian by training, so something that really helps provide some context and history of the public art program that might guide our future development is something we could consider. And then we also have talked about hosting a forum with nationally recognized public artists. This is, in fact, something that Dr. Coleman suggested, something that could be very collaborative and educational, but also have capacity building and professional development for our local artists. So this was just a first pass at ideas. I'd love to, if we could open it up, Chair Weston.
Yeah, let's open this up for a minute. I think I'm very excited about all these ideas, about several of them. I think the impact on the artists already in the collection and then the overall public art program as our main focus is celebrating the history and making the public aware of what we have and also kind of planning for the future. So celebrating what we've done and planning for the future while we're able to also pay artists. I think that is a very important part. So what are everyone's thoughts? I know we've had to lose a couple of people. And so, thoughts? And we'll be coming back to this in January at our next meeting. So, but we just wanted to kind of put this out there today and get some ideas, and then we'll be working on it and bring it back to you.
So these are just ideas right now, or they're to be implemented?
These are just ideas. I mean, many more than we could possibly implement in 2025. So by giving these to you today, I just wanted to see which ones we're most excited about, which seem like the right fit for us, because I just want to know which ones to develop a little bit further so that I can come back to you with budget numbers and a more fully shaped project idea.
Well, I think we talked about the first two, just kind of solving the issues that are at hand with the lending program, and then the rotating may involve the lending library. So I think that kind of deserves a future consideration and what have you. Recite, that involves 1 and 2, because where will those recite pieces go, or what have you. I think it's always good to involve artists with some type of public interaction. So to me, that's a given. And if you want me to comment on the other two, I think historical data is always good, for the future of Nashville as a growing city as it is, and develop equity analysis. I think that kind of goes with the previous one, right? Maybe.
Well, maybe not necessarily. I mean, there's, the media resources, that might be interviews with artists, kind of like those content, packages that they are creating with artists, at their artwork, something that artists can use when they're, looking at possible new commissions and applying for things. But then this, equity analysis and equity survey is something that I know the Americans for the Arts, their public art network, something that I happened to be a part of a training they had, showing some other cities that had done done just this, getting more, data about their program. Sometimes it's a large program, but if you weren't collecting all that information all along the way, then you might not have it. So certainly it might be a good idea for us to have that, just to better document how our program has evolved.
Well, I just like to see, I'm going to propose that we revisit this with recommendations as far as 2025 programs involve national recognized artists or local artists speaking and that sort of thing. I think that's incremental. So if y'all have some ideas of people to propose to speak and what have you, I would love to revisit that because the information is not here today. And anything that can be done for the arts, I think is wonderful. So I think but maybe it's just ideas, like you said, for today.
Right. It's more than we could take on. So certainly we hope to have a new public art manager who would be a part of this too. But, in many cases, these are, new projects that we have not been anticipating. Of course, we have several that are multi-year that are already underway. So we just need to kind of think strategically about which of these projects are the ones that fit our goals and celebrate our anniversary as we would want to.
And just more immediately, I'm good friends with Alan McQuire and Andre. He's having a huge retrospective at the Parthenon in 2025 and begins June 10th. I think something around that he says he's one of our premier public artists. Yeah. I think that him speaking somewhere or doing something in his honor would be very, very good.
I love that. That's a great idea. And as we think about, artists to celebrate, kind of going back to the expanding the promotions for the existing collection, there's so many things now that are available to us to offer artists that were not available. Like I think about Buddy Jackson's sculpture that he did forever ago. Things like that we can go in and do like before and after.
I'm sure the Parthenon is planning something, so maybe some synergy between the city and...
That's great thinking. Wonder, if their exhibit space is up there. But we brought this to y'all just to get the ideas out there and then kind of get some feedback and then kind of flush them out with more concrete in January. And also, as always, I want to be very, very respectful of the staff and time and capacity and think about what is going to be the best, but also not weigh everyone down so much in addition to their other workflow. So just want to be real cautious about that. Okay. Thank you, Ann Leslie. And the last item is our public art manager hiring update. Dr. Coleman?
The public art manager post has been, it is posted currently. It had a very, very short initial due date. They extended the due date. We are also advertising through the Americans for the Arts Public Art Network and through whatever personal contacts we have. The new deadline is November 22nd. As the process is unfolding, we will be receiving something called a preliminary report from HR that lists all the applicants and they're ranked and scored. There's I won't call it a preference, but priority is given to those who are civil servants and those who are veterans. And after that, it's sent to us. And like today, we sent out the report, the preliminary HR report for the position of public information manager. So that one is a little bit ahead. And that's all I have to report. I don't know how many have applied, but if it's anything like the other one, there were some 80 some odd applicants for the public information position. And as they reviewed, I think it was down to about 70 something. And then that's when they sent us the report and we'll have to make some decisions.
Who is on the review committee for that? Because public art is such a specific position. So who is actually reviewing all that? And then who is on the hiring panel?
Okay. The review is done by HR. We have a talent acquisition person. Kevin Palmazzano has been handling much of our HR issues, and there is a talent acquisition, either manager or coordinator, whose name is Jason Lusk. None of the other, I don't know any other committees that have been, because it's so preliminary. I had asked them about 6 questions in the email today about even reviewing the preliminary group, because they have scored them, and they said if we needed adjustments, and so what criteria do we use, et cetera. So at this stage, and we are called this office is called the expert manager. And again, that's just some names and so forth and so on. I'm sorry, you have my back to you. That HR uses. After this process, the thing that surprised me is our office is the one that has to do the reference checks and those kinds of things. And so we're not there yet. And I've asked the managers to look at them and recommend those that they would like to see further. We'll compile those and then get that back to HR, and then there'll be other steps. I have no idea of how long the time will take. It could be that out of the 70-something, there's nobody that meets our needs for the ones that we currently have. One of the reasons we were very explicit about making sure there was a national outreach is because public arts is not only specific, but we want to take our public art activities, which I think are very important, to the next level. I don't know that there are many cities where the public art people are collaborating with the libraries, as an example. And so that's all the information I have at this point.
Thank you. When you say the managers are reviewing, which managers? I got the HR managers?
No, the managers in here. So Ann Leslie is a public arts collections. No, I'm sorry. Public arts collections manager. We have Josiah Golson, who is the restorative arts and justice manager. We have Sydney Davis, who is the grants and strategic initiatives manager. And we have Chuck Beard, who is the community engagement manager, and myself.
So those managers are reviewing the criteria or reviewing the
they're
actual?
Reviewing, there's an Excel spreadsheet that came from HR that is what they call a preliminary report. And all of the 80-something applicants are listed. They'll have years, this is what I'm recalling, years of experience. They'll have whether they're veteran or civil service. They'll have their education. I don't recall what the other columns are. And those are what we will review and take a look at. It's a multi-staged process, and that's what I asked in my email. That's my first time seeing it, aside from having to develop the functional aspects of the job to make sure that our needs were met, because sometimes the profile for the job that is HR does not meet our particular needs. And they do have some constraints in terms of HR and civil service, but a lot of the things that we deemed important were included, not all of them, however. And so that's what we mean by that.
That helps a lot. So we've currently got, we have 80 or so applicants for
Yes,
this position.
But they've narrowed it down to, 70-something that qualify, and then they'll narrow it down. I don't know how many phases of narrowing down comes out. That's what I asked in the, and if there was any kind of a graphic that kind of showed how it went in the time frame. They have not given me a time frame.
Thank you so much. So can we expect to have an update on public art manager hiring? If that happens prior to our next January meeting, can I please request an update on that to the full Public Art Commission?
Sure.
So we kind of know what direction is being headed. And if I need to be involved in that, I'm happy to be. Any kind of reviews at all, I'm around. So any other thoughts or questions from staff on anything, or other commissioners?
You had mentioned, you asked about a hiring panel. Is that, did you mean like, maybe some commissioners, maybe, or council members, or?
more on who's actually reviewing the applicants and then who is doing the interviews. So I know, for example, for the last round, I feel like, and Leslie, you may have sat in on some, and then we had, I think, someone from DEI, someone from HR. It's just really important to have someone with a knowledge of public art in this process, or it's just that
Yeah,
specific. So
we
you
even
might
had
wanna-
outside public art experts that
right?
were on
Yeah.
the interview panel, yeah.
So the way I'm understanding, and if I'm hearing you correctly, that the staff currently, the manager level staff, they're reviewing what's being sent over from HR and then giving their feedback. That goes back to HR.
Well, yeah, it will go to
Go to
me
you.
because there is no requirement that staff has to be involved. But my concern is, since I'm interim, they will have to live with the person.
Right.
So therefore, I didn't want to wait until the end for them to just be signing off. So I want them to be involved in every phase of the hiring process. So this is the first time I've ever had to respond. Now, I did the functional job description elements, and I think I maybe asked a couple of people. I didn't send it to everybody, but now that it has begun, and I think it's very, very important for staff. As I said, they will have to live with the choice.
Right. That makes all the sense.
And they have, several of them have had experience with more than one public art manager. So they will have sensitivity to our environment and our realities and can bring that to bear. They have, everybody here basically has been here, and Leslie is the veteran of the whole department, and Attilio is second. So that kind of institutional knowledge and direct day-to-day experience, I think, is important.
Yes. That answers everything. Thank you so much. Anybody else? Okay. Well, with that, it is. Oh, yes, sir.
I have a birthday on the 19th, if you can. And I'm proud to be here.
Happy birthday, Carlton.
All right, thank you.
Happy early birthday. Are you celebrating well? Are you gonna?
Not really.
We'll see about that.
That's an idea, but I recognize it.
Well, happy early birthday. And thank you all for being here. And it's 1:04, and I make a motion to adjourn. I need a second. All in favor? Aye. Yes. Thanks, Sean. Thanks, Stacy.
Thank you all. Good to see you. Sorry you couldn't see me.
I'm gonna come see you soon, Stacy.
Oh, I see what
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.